The First have long said that there's little to no evidence that so-called de-radicalisation programs actually work to make the community safer. Well, now there's a landmark report released under FOI that has confirmed that. The report from the Australian Institute of Criminology found that programs have failed to change the behaviour of high-risk individuals. The people involved in the program were still accessing extremist content, and that in escalating cases, law enforcement has been needed to be called in. The report does note that, quote, a small number of clients reported a shift from wanting to die for their beliefs to now believing they had something to live for. Well, that's all good and well, but given the cost, not to mention the seriousness of this, I think that a small number is hardly a number of success. Joining me now for his analysis, the Director of Strategic Analysis Australia, Peter Jennings. Well, Peter, this report, as I said, has only come to light because of FOI. It's not been released by the authorities. But since it was delivered to the government, there has been funding for de-radicalisation programs for, 7 years, 2018, $62 million. You've got to ask, is this the best use of our money to combat terrorism if we find with this report it's not working?
It's clearly not, Peter. I would rather see that money go to stronger frontline policing, more effective legal systems which can actually get people that are charged with crimes into court, perhaps even better ways of vetting individuals who come here and receive visas. There'd be a lot of better ways to spend the money. By definition, people who are high risk are not going to be easy candidates for de-radicalisation. And I think we need more light shone on this to actually show how is the money being spent, what's it actually being used for. I think a lot of it goes into community relations rather than de-radicalisation. And this is one area where we've seen very little in the way of positive results in Western democracies going back over, 10 or 15 years. So I don't think it's money well spent.
Just on that point, we have the evidence. It's not just this report in Australia. I picked up a report a few years ago that was done by the House of Lords. I think it landed in about 2018. And it demonstrated there in the UK it was not working. They had some 33 different government programs. 95% the Lords found were ineffective. We know they've obviously had rampant terrorism incidents, particularly in London. So if we know it's not working there, we know it's not working here. Well, what's our plan B, Australia, given the risk we've likely just imported here to Australia from Gaza?
I'm not sure we even have a plan A, let alone a plan B. What we've got is a heavy political overlay across this, which from an ideological perspective says that one isn't allowed to talk about extremist Islam as being the major driver of terrorism risk in Australia today. We've got a policing culture at the moment which doesn't want to pursue hardline policing attempts against people on the streets, threatening our Jewish community in particular. So this is an area where I think ideology has gotten in the way of practicality. And when it comes to terrorism, the most important thing is community safety. And I think notional ideas of de-radicalisation should come a long way behind that, Peter. The proof of that is that we've failed in this attempts over a significant number of years. That's why governments of all political persuasions have wanted individuals charged with terrorist crimes to stay in jail. And I think we just have to say that, until better methods come along, what's passing for de-radicalisation in many democracies now is simply not achieving its desired effect.
In the last couple of years, there's been reports that we had about 78 serious terrorists, people that were convicted of terror offences due to come out of jail. Some will have ongoing monitoring, some will not. If the programs aren't working, but we're still paying out millions, I know from government, a lot of this money goes to Islamic organisations. Now, that concerns me that we're paying these bodies, and you look at some of these radical mosques. I hope the money's, if it's not working to de-radicalise people, I hope it's not working the other way, given some of the organisations. But with all of that at stake, and as I said, these people coming from Gaza, surely we've got to have a review, an audit into what we're doing, what we're spending, and rethink this whole thing.
I think that's right, Peter. I mean, a lot of that money has gone into what I would describe as community relations. And again, there's an ideological disposition to want to see multiculturalism as being the solution to all of Australia's problems. This is not de-radicalisation. This does not address people that get themselves to that point in their ideological development where they're thinking about the use of extreme force. And so this does need to be reopened. I think we need to ask why we're seeing such soft policing dealing with these issues at the moment, and a lot of money which goes without any clearly defined purpose and no clearly defined results says to me that this is an area that's ripe for review.
And look, I'll pick this up tomorrow night when I speak to someone from London, but of course they've got a debate over there in the Commons about a definition, a legal definition of Islamophobia. And once you have that definition that they're mooted, the government's mooted there in London on the table, conversations like we're having tonight are basically shut down because we'll be claimed as Islamophobic for even questioning these DRAD programs. Hey, just before you go, Donald Trump's pick for the Secretary of Defence, Pete Hegseth, a big grilling today, expected theatre from the Democrats, sure, but they got pretty hysterical. I'll play a bit of it now for my viewers.
Will you resign as Secretary of Defense if you drink on the job, which is a 24/7 position?
I've made this commitment on behalf of
Will
the
you
men and women I'm
resign
serving.
as Secretary of Defense
I've
if
made this
you
commitment
drink
on
on the
behalf of
job?
the men and women I'm serving.
You led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge.
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or
with the
no?
money. I support Israel destroying and killing every last member of Hamas.
Well, how'd it go, do you think?
Oh, look, he'll pass on party lines, Peter. I mean, how ridiculous that line of questioning, as if no drinking ever happens in the American Senate. What I liked about Hegseth is that he's got, tough ideas about dealing with China. He's focused on wanting to bring a warrior culture back to the Pentagon. Not a bad idea for a defence organisation. He wants to talk about getting more defence equipment into the hands of the warfighters. Yes, he's had a colourful past life, but that's never been a disbarment from political service in the United States or in Australia. So I think he will now get Senate confirmation. And let's hope he's up to the job, because we certainly need a strong US Secretary of Defence in the world that we're going into.